What's going on, everybody? We've got 3 draft day winners for you guys. People that we see in fantasy football that they are actually winners after the NFL draft. We already know when people get drafted at all these different places, people go into running back committees, wide receiver committees, quarterback competitions, tight end competitions, all types of things. Well, I have 3 guys right here who actually benefited from the NFL draft. Let's dive right into it. Going into our very first guy, we're talking about George Pickens. Now, there wasn't any high draft capital type of wide receivers. They took Roman Wilson, the wide receiver out of Michigan, in the 3rd round. So George Pickens is the benefactor of this offense. He will be the 1A guy. Nothing that's going to stop him. Let's just look at the depth chart. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. We look at this. George Pickens is the first guy here. What we got next? Van Jefferson, right? Decent wide receiver, but not going to take over Pickens' role. Roman Wilson, I think he can easily become the 2nd wide receiver. Roman Wilson is really just a slot guy. I think we're going to see George Pickens be the absolute 1A monster in this offense. And I love to see what he's going to do in this season, actually with a competent type of quarterback. No more Kenny Pickett or Mitchell Trubisky throwing in the football. Going to have either Russell Wilson, which is definitely an upgrade of what he had, or he's going to have some Justin Fields, depending on what happens. Either way it goes, you look at somebody that's going to be hyper targeted in the offense. You're looking at I keep saying Kenny Pickett, George Pickens. It's because they were still on the same teams. Well, I always say Kenny. I always get it confused, but it's all good. George Pickens, this dude is going to be absolutely phenomenal this season. Guys, if you're in Dynasty, go trade for this guy. His value is not going to be as high as it's going to be next offseason. I promise you, George Pickens is going to be absolutely elite. He put up over 1,000 yards receiving, and he didn't even have a competent quarterback. Let's go. The number of catchable passes that he had was probably some of the lowest in the NFL. Go get this guy on your team. The next winner I'm going to talk about here has got to be Daniel Jones, right? They did not draft a quarterback in this draft, even though they had the opportunity of drafting some nice quarterbacks up there at the top of the draft. What did they end up doing? Well, they ended up getting some weapons for him. Malik Neighbors, right? Theo Johnson, Tyrone Tracy. They ended up getting a lot of weapons around this guy and say, look, we're going to probably give you one last hoorah, and let's see if you can make something happen. Let's just look at the depth chart real quick, so then you can kind of look at all this. We see Daniel Jones definitely at that quarterback position. Drew Lock behind him. Drew Lock's really not any kind of proposed behind this guy. They signed Devin Singletary in free agency. Tyrone Tracy, I just mentioned him earlier. I think he can end up going into the 2nd slot, a backup right behind Devin Singletary, and heaven forbid something happened to Singletary, Tyrone Tracy could step in and get tons of work. I don't think Gary Brightwell or Eric Gray is going to really, give Tracy any kind of run for his money. Malik Neighbors jumps into the number 1 wide receiver role for this offense. And I'm just telling you guys, this is something that's super exciting for me. I think that Daniel Jones could be a decent quarterback. I'm not calling for him to be a top 5 type of quarterback, but somebody you could probably trade peanuts for and get on your roster. And if he's able to do something, because they get him a lot of weapons now, you might have a nice bye week fill in, or heaven forbid something happened to your quarterback. You've got a quarterback like Daniel Jones who has a little bit higher of a floor because of his rushing opportunities. You might be able to see something and get him pretty much for free. The last winner I'm going to talk about here has got to be Zach Moss, the new running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. They didn't have any running backs in free agency, and they didn't draft any running backs in the NFL draft. It is just Zach Moss. We're looking at probably 18 plus carries a game. He will be a bell cow back in the NFL. Let's just look at the depth chart. That way I can kind of go over all of this information. As we see here, Joe Burrow's obviously the quarterback here. Zach Moss, all by himself. Who's behind him? Chase Brown, Travion Williams, Chris Evans. That's pretty much all they have. And then the wide receivers, they ended up getting Jermaine Burton. He's probably going to take over for T. Higgins as well. But back on Zach Moss, guys, go get this guy. Last offseason, before he ended up with the Bengals, I think this was a phenomenal trade to go get. But even now, I don't think his value's got to be through the roof. As long as there's an owner that's not on it, definitely not watching this channel at the Bayou Bengal Fantasy Network, because we're going to give you some gems. But I think Zach Moss is one of those gems. If you have the opportunity to go get Zach Moss, go get him on your team. Guys, hit the subscribe button. Really close to 1,000 subscribers. Hit a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Who do you guys think is y'all's biggest winner after the NFL draft? I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.